Hey everyone, welcome to the second video in my PyGame tutorial series. Throughout the course, you'll learn important game development skills and how to utilize them with PyGame. This is Lesson 1, your first PyGame project. So here I have a blank Python file, and I'll teach you the core elements every PyGame project needs. Just like any other library, we have to import PyGame at the beginning. PyGame also needs to be initialized with the init function. Some things will still work without being initialized, but always call the init function anyway to ensure PyGame works properly. Another thing worth noting is that if you're splitting your code into multiple files, you only need to call the init function once. In this example, file 1 initializes Pygame and then runs file 2. File 2 will check if Pygame has been initialized, and as you can see, it outputs true. To create a window, use pygame.display.setMode and then store it in a variable. Pygame.display.setMode takes a tuple containing your desired window dimensions. For this lesson, I'll use 800 by 600. You can also change the window title with pygame.display.setCaption. The last thing needed before the game loop is a clock. Without a clock, the game loop will run as fast as the machine can handle, which can sometimes go up to hundreds of frames per second. In case you're not familiar with a game loop, here's a brief description. Video games are constantly looping. You can think of each iteration as a frame. During the start of a frame, the game checks for user input, called events. If one of these events is the red X button, the game will close. Otherwise, the game makes its calculations based on the events and updates the graphics. In Pygame, our game loop will run as long as running equals true. To detect user events, call the pygame.event.get function. This will return a list of events, and we can iterate through them with a for loop. If any of the events are pygame.quit, which means the red X button in the top right corner, change running to false. At the bottom of the while loop, call pygame.quit to uninitialize Pygame. I'll talk more about getting events in a few lessons. Now, the clock we made earlier doesn't actually do anything by itself. Inside the game loop, we have to call the tick method. Put the maximum number of frames per second you want inside the brackets. The final component to the game loop is changing the screen. Before drawing anything, always clear the screen by filling it with a solid color. Most functions and methods in Pygame take RGB or hex values when dealing with color. 000 is the RGB value for black. After you draw graphics, in order for them to show up on the screen, call the pygame.display.update function. You might see pygame.display.flip in other tutorials. Both are fine because for this purpose, they are basically the exact same. Congratulations on making your first Pygame project. It can't do much right now, but you'll soon learn how to create playable games. In future lessons, we'll use the structure we made today to use Pygame. The next lesson will be using surfaces.